Hi, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we'll be covering types of variables and what are the keywords we can use to create a variable in JavaScript. So in general, we have three keywords in JavaScript, that is var, lat and const. So these are the three keywords that we can use to create a variable. So the variable or coding before ES6, we used variable to create a var to create a variable. So let me first create a variable called ex. So we have created a variable but we haven't defined any value to it. So if we try to get it as an output, we'll get an error saying that ex is undefined. You see, value is undefined. So in order to get a value here, we'll just assign a value to that particular variable. So in JavaScript, we can assign any data types to a particular variable. You can assign an integer, you can assign a string, you can assign a float, you can assign boolean values to it. So now when we run, we'll get an output as 100 in the console. So the variable that gets created here has a global scope. So you can call it anywhere. Sorry. So the keywords created using var has two scopes. One is global scope and one is program scope. Sorry, functional scope. So the variable created inside a function cannot be called outside the function. But whereas variables created outside the function can be called anywhere in the document. So here I'm just creating a function, but I'm not going to call the function, and I'm just creating a variable inside that function and assigning a value, and I say I'm trying to call it outside the function. So now I'll get an error, or we'll get an error saying that ex1 is not defined. You see, ex1 is not defined. So again, you need to keep in mind that when you get what kind of errors, when you get it is not defined, when you get undefined, like that. So what I'll do here is I'll just comment this out, because if we don't comment, the console won't render the next coming lines. So it has variable has only two scopes, that is global and functional. But if there are conditions where we need a block scoped variables. What is a block scoped? I'll tell you. If I'm creating a condition of f and I say I'll just create a variable ex2 and I'll assign a value as 150, and now I'll try to call it outside the box or outside the block. So now my output will be 150. So I'll just create a variable I and I'll assign the value as 12. So you see, I got 150 as an output for ex2. So this causes an error when multiple people are working on the same project and multiple people are trying to create a same variable. So if I have created a variable and assigned a value as 150, and if someone in the lower versions they have trying to create a same variable and assigning a value as 180, then it will cause me an error. Otherwise, if they forget to assign a value to that particular variable, so this value gets overwritten to that particular variable. So in order to avoid those kind of issues, we have a keyword called let. So when we use let and create a variable, so I'm going to create two variables here. One is ex3, and I'll assign a value as 200, and for the same above example, I is greater than 10, Inside I'll just create an variable using let, and I'll say ex4 equals to 159. I'll do a console log of ex3, console log of ex4, and I'll try to call it outside the block ex4. So what happens here is the keyword created outside the block has a global scope, and the keyword that gets created inside the block has a block level scope. So now here I can display the value of ex3 and ex4 inside the if block, but if I try to display the value of ex4 outside the block, I'll get an error saying that ex4 is undefined. You see, ex4 is undefined because this has only block level scope. We can't use it outside the block. Again, another advantage of the keyword let is you can't declare the same keyword twice. So if we use var and I say I will create a variable vx5 and I'll assign a value as 159, then I can create the same variable and I can assign 753. So what I'm doing here is initializing a keyword ex5 at 24 line and also doing the same thing at line 25, which is accepted for the keyword var. But if I use let and I create a variable, again I can create the same variable, but I can update the value here. So what I'll get is I'll get an error at line 28 saying ex6 is already defined. You see, has already been declared. So what I can do here is I'll just remove let and I'll leave it like this. So this is a valid statement because I'm just declaring it. Again, I'm reassigning the value to ex6. So this is an advantage of the keyword let. Next we have something called const. So whenever we create a variable using constant, we can't change the value to it. So I have created a variable ex7. If I try to change the value to 741, I'll get an error saying that trying to assign constant variable. Yes, assignment to constant variable. The reason is once we have created a keyword using a using a keyword const, we can't change that value throughout the code, or we can't reassign any value to it. And constant has the same properties of let. Constant created outside the block has a global scope. Constant variable created inside the block has a block scope. So these are the three keywords used to create a variable, that is var, let and const. So depending on your requirement we can use that. So what I suggest is using let and const is much preferred than var. So if you see var in any of the code that you are working, which means they have used, it is an older code or they are using an older version. Instead of that we can go with let and const. Again, it depends on your project requirements. So if you wanted to use var, you can use var throughout your code. It doesn't make any difference until it has any specific logics attached to it. So if you have any doubts, please drop in the comments section. Please do follow for more videos. Have a nice day. We'll meet in the next video with some new features of JavaScript. Bye.